Good afternoon, evening, or whatever time you're watching this video. This is another episode of the Planting Seeds podcast from Harvest Advisory Group. I'm Nick, the owner, and joining me as always is our client relationship manager.
Hey, I'm Josh.
So today we're going to continue with what we've been talking about the last few times, some random questions that we've received from the internet, and keeping kind of with the theme over the last couple of weeks, we're going to be discussing 1099s and
Mhm.
contractors, as I understand it, Josh. So why don't you go ahead and give us the first question and we'll jump right into it.
Yeah, so sort of like Nick said, one of the things that we're doing right now is we're taking questions that are like our top searched through our website or like what the top hits are from our website. So we thought it would be beneficial to, if people are looking for it, let's go ahead and talk about it. So today the question is, um, do I have to 1099 contractors?
We have 1099 contractors. Okay. Short answer, sometimes. So, and here's the thing, the rule just changed on that recently for the first time since like 1954. So, yeah. So the old rule was you pay contractors if they reach a threshold of $600 or more, send them a 1099. If they didn't reach that, you didn't have to. The new rule starting for 2026 is $2,000, and it's indexed for inflation starting in 2027. That number will change depending on
Mhm.
inflation, so it'll be indexed. So like if you had a guy that built your website for $1,500 in 2026, doesn't meet the threshold necessarily. But if he continued to do extra work and updates throughout 2026 and that dollar amount went over 2000, then yeah, you would have to, in theory, 1099 that person. There's some caveats to that rule. So basically contractors, if they're sole proprietors and not corporations, you 1099 them, right? So
Mhm.
like if it's a web development company, they're an 1120 or 1120S, then you pay them their fee. You don't necessarily have to send them a 1099 at the end of the year. But
Mhm.
if they're an individual owner, sole proprietor, single member LLC, something like that's not an S corp or a C corp, then you would probably want to send them a 1099 at the end of the year. And here's where it gets special. Ready for this?
I am.
Before they do work, before you send them their first check, what you should do is send them what's called a W-9. So this
Mhm.
is a document that the IRS has created for everybody to use, and it basically takes down their information, including their EIN if they're a business, social security number if they're an individual, and then that's what you use to 1099 them at the end of the year. And you want to hear where it gets really tricky?
Always.
All right, so let's say you send them that W-9 before they ever do work, or you send it to them and they've started work, but before you send them the first check for sure,
Mhm.
you've sent them this W-9 and they don't fill it out and send it back to you. And then they reach the threshold. The IRS has a rule that says you are required to withhold 24% of the check that you send them that goes over the threshold, not the amount over the threshold, the entire check, 24% of that check, and submit it to the IRS. You have to pay it to the IRS. And it gets even trickier than that because you don't have
Okay.
their SIN, right? You don't have a social security EIN. So you have to submit it under your own. It's basically in some sort of holding account at that point until you can get that information or 1099 them. So any dollar amount after that, $2,000 threshold, including the payment that goes over that threshold, has to have those withholdings taken out and submitted to the IRS if they have not sent you a W-9.
So a W-9 should be before they ever do work.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Like one of the probably the best thing is you had somebody coming into your office and they're going to do some work for you, whether that's like plumber, that's a sole
Mhm.
proprietor, um, graphic designer, anybody, painter, anything that's a sole proprietor, you're going to want to have them fill out that W-9. So here's the question. How do you know that they're a sole proprietor and not an 1120S or, some other type of corporation until they fill out that document.
Yeah.
You don't.
That's why they fill
So
out the document.
when someone comes in and they're going to do work for you and you're going to pay them as a contractor, you should always get that W-9 so that you know whether or not you need to 1099 them at the end of the year, or if you don't have to.
Wow. Hmm. Okay, so I mean, okay, with that, okay, so I I understand that conceptually. So my question is, so let's say from the point of view of the contractor, so but you still, even if you do, because theoretically you're doing a bunch of different jobs, you have to pay, like say if I've got two jobs that were only $500, that person does not have to send that, they don't have to send me a 1099, but I still have to pay on that because it's like for me as the contractor, I'm over that threshold in total, correct?
Well, two at 500 would be over, but the threshold for what the individual doing the work has to pay is,
Yeah.
you if you receive income as a small business, you have to submit the income to the government
But
via
I would just
tax
claim
return.
it without a 1099 and like I would, I just wouldn't have a 1099 to like attach to that dollar amount, right? Okay.
Yep. Now, obviously there's always things that, are little caveats to that rule. A good rule of thumb would be something like, you don't pay for products, right? Like you don't 1099
Yeah.
Office Max for reams of paper at the end of the year.
Yeah.
They're a corporation. You don't have to do that. Um, it's kind of like, you're looking at sole proprietors or contractors doing stuff specifically for your business, like
Mhm.
painters, plumbers, graphic designers, things like that. Those are the people that you
Yeah.
would definitely 1099. You will always 1099 your lawyer, or any medical individual, like a doctor that does specific work for your business, whatever that
Okay.
might look like.
Yeah.
You don't always have to, in the past, you would always 1099 your CPA, but that is dependent upon the rule of, are they a sole proprietor or a corporation? So if the CPA is an S corp, you don't. If they are a C corp, you don't. If they're a sole proprietor, you do.
Okay. It's interesting. It's like it's an interesting like distinction, I guess. And of course there's gonna be, we've talked about them already. There's different rules and distinctions. It's one of those interesting things where it's like in that situation, not to be whatever, but I'm like, get somebody like us to help you with that because I'm like, I don't want to remember those rules,
Right? Yeah, if you're
Yeah.
the business owner, that's probably not something that you're thinking about on a regular basis. So just the general
No,
rule of thumb is, someone comes in to do work for you, have them fill out a W-9, then you got it in your records. You can
Mhm.
always refer to that, or your accountant can refer to that when it comes time to send out those documents to the IRS.
Yeah. So really, the rule of thumb in all of this is get someone to fill out a W-9 before they ever do work for you.
Absolutely.
I like that. That's a clean rule to leave people with. Just do this.
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to jump over into some of our rapid fire questions. So the first one we have is, and I like this one. It's important because I think we find people getting into a lot of this and forgetting or not thinking about it. So, what is something that you should talk to your accountant about before you do instead of afterward?
I would say anything that can't be undone.
Okay.
So whether it's forming an entity, electing to be an S corp, buying a building, taking money out of the business, bringing on a partner, selling the business, anything that can't be undone like that is always a good idea to talk to your accountant about before doing it.
So I like let's I'm gonna ask this as like in the point of view from one of our like just one of our clients, like a regular client, if they're thinking about like absorbing or acquiring another business or they're looking at getting another piece of property, at what point should they let us know? Is it like when they're starting to look before they ever? Here's the thing. In theory, I'd like them to start, like if it's buying something, I'd like them to talk to us before they ever start looking because then they can know they have a better idea what their finances are. But, at what point is the point to say, hey, Harvest, we're looking at doing this. Let's talk through that. When's a good time?
As early as possible.
Okay.
If you're thinking about doing anything major, for sure, Even
Mhm.
stuff that's minor, you might think is minor, that doesn't have that much of an implication on, say, taxes or the functionality of the business, profitability of the business. It's always a good idea to talk to your accountant first and get an idea of where you're at and projecting, what's coming over the next few months, to see how that might play, long term, short term. Just the simplest thing is at least the accountant knows what's coming.
Yeah.
Like you're thinking about buying this thing, and they can begin to think through like how that will affect, say, a tax return or the profitability of the business, so that they know how to advise you on the next step after that. They can also give you a list of things that they're going to want to see. So, like, say you're buying a building, they're going to want to see the contract, closing docs,
Hmm.
anything that's related to that, so that they can have that as supporting evidence against whether, anything that you choose to do with your tax returns with that, um, for strategy purposes and things like that. Like you're gonna want to get that information to them early and often would be
Yeah.
the best case. Like as soon as you get it, they get it. Have some sort of system in place with the accountant so that once you get that document, that you can upload it correctly to the portal. Uh, you know, drop it by the office if that's how your accountant works with things. But like
Yeah.
you will definitely want to have that information to them so that they know what's coming and not be surprised at the end of the year. Remember, at the end of the year, it's too late to fix anything that could have gone wrong. And it usually makes your tax return take longer to do as they're trying to sort through some of that stuff, which can be more
Yeah.
expensive at the end of the year as well.
Yeah, I mean, even like I think, we of course mentioned you think about like buying a building or purchasing a building, but it's also like even like a new company car. The thing is for that, it's like you may be thinking about, oh, I can afford this car payment, but it's like there's also insurance, there's other things like that you have to like, and it's like for us, I think for us, it helps you budget if we know what's coming, because it's there are a lot of unknowns in any kind of purchase. As far as purchases go, at what dollar amount is it like, oh, I should call Nick and ask him about this.
I think that's dependent upon you and your account. You're talking
Okay.
about me. I
Yeah.
want to know something, something big like vehicles or buildings or thinking about buying insurance for the company, stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, the IRS's rule for documentation is $75, unless it's
Hmm.
something like travel or meals. You have to document that at any dollar amount.
Okay.
Um, I do want to have access to receipts or at least know that they're there. Typically, we do ask for receipts for anything over $75. But that's also kind of just documenting the things that have happened. If you're talking
Hmm.
about planning ahead, anything that, you know, basically anything that's a big choice that is something that you can't necessarily just reverse, right?
Yeah.
Like buildings, once you sign the paperwork, it's your building. Cars, once you sign the paperwork, basically it's yours. Like
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Cool. All right. Here's another one. So, and this, I think this is a really interesting question, and we probably have a similar philosophy on this. But the next question up, does every business need to grow?
Um, no,
Yeah.
not all businesses need to grow. Growth is a strategy,
Hmm.
not a requirement.
Yeah.
So like if it's something that you want to be bigger and better and continue to grow the business, then you want to put some strategies in place and do some advisory conversations with your accountant and tax professional and maybe somebody from the SBA, things like that.
Hmm.
But yeah, strategy, the strategy is what you use to grow the business. You grow the business if that's what you're looking at doing, right?
Yeah.
Not all business owners grow beyond a certain point and they're very successful. They
Yeah.
can support themselves and their family. They do what they do. They do it really well. They love what they do, and there's no reason for them to get beyond that. If they wanted to do that, then you implement growth strategies and have some plans. But it's not required. You don't have to grow beyond what you're capable of just doing day in and day out and supporting yourself
Yeah.
or your family.
No, I agree. We talk about goal setting and things like that. If your goal is to be there and you've hit your goal, it's like your goal is not growth, it's maintenance. And those are two different things. And so I mean maintenance does require like acquisition and depending on what you do, like for you to grow some aspects. But it's like I agree. I think it's all about goals and what you're after because, no, not every business needs to grow. I think you could find yourself in trouble a- if you're all by yourself and you're just like, oh, I have to grow, and then you outgrow yourself.
Mhm.
All right, and that actually leads me into my next question. Um, what's a sign that it's time for you to hire your first employee? What's that number one thing that it's like, oh, it's time to hire somebody?
I think it would be different for everybody, you know,
Mhm.
um, but probably in the simplest terms possible, if you're the owner and you're the only person working in the business and you're doing a lot of $15 tasks, and those $15 tasks are keeping you from doing a $150 task, hire somebody to do the $15 task.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, if you're getting to a point where sort of the smaller, more busy work stuff in the business is costing you more profitable work, then that might be the sign that it's time to hire your first employee.
Yeah. No, I agree. I also think it's one of those things where it's like, and on the same topic of like those $15 tasks, it's like when those start slipping through the cracks a lot. It's like when those start getting missed, when those are like, oh, I forgot to do that, or oh shoot, I need to do this, or like when those start getting pushed further and further back and deadlines missed. It's little stuff at first, but it's like when you realize that all those little $15 tasks have now equaled up to you've missed a lot of stuff. I think that's when you start missing things on a regular basis because you were consumed with your actual duties. I think that's when it's time to say, okay, it may be time to hire somebody else.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay. Here's another one, and this is like, I think this one's really a interesting question, and I think it's important for a lot of people. This is one of those that I don't really have an answer to. I think I know what it is, but I'm gonna lean on you heavily for this one, though. All right, what should someone do financially before they start a business?
So you've got something that you want to do
Hmm.
and you're looking at it to be a business, not
Yes.
just a hobby.
Yep.
Um, One, I would start it as sort of a hobby,
Hmm.
see if you could make some money at it, test it out,
Yeah.
test the waters. After that, I would say that from a financial perspective, you need probably 6 months of household expenses, not business expenses
Hmm.
like mortgage, utilities, groceries, car insurance, whatever, your personal
Hmm.
expenses. 6 months of those and a business bank account
Okay.
before you ever, you know, do do something with earning money as the business. Like as a
Hmm.
hobby, as a person, you're selling trinkets at, you know, whatever it is,
Yeah.
you're getting into graphic design on your own, or you're selling little products that you make in your garage. That's you can sell those as yourself and be okay.
Yeah.
The moment that you start to put like a name and try to have some branding or concept behind the product itself, and you want to start a business, that's so do a business bank account. You got to have a business, so you got to start an
Hmm.
LLC, um, and then have the business bank account, and all the income from that goes into it. You use that for expenses for the business, and you don't put personal expenses in there. You don't pay for the business stuff out of your personal money unless you reimburse yourself later if you sold that product, maybe. Um, and then you need to know a number
Hmm.
that is the number needed to be successful month to month at that business.
Okay.
So you've got 6 months of expenses, got your business bank account. You need to know how much money needs to go into that business bank account to pay for the expenses of the business and be a little bit profitable at the end so
Hmm.
that you're not just spending money, you know.
Yeah.
So you gotta know how much you need to be able to sell. So if you need, $1,000, you got a W-2 job, you need $1,000 a month to like that be the first milestone for you, let's say.
Yeah.
That's an individual number now.
Yeah.
It's dependent upon you and what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, what's the point where you can break even? What's the point where you can become profitable? You need to know those and be working towards them. And then obviously at that point, if you make that where you're able to provide for your personal expenses and the business expenses, that's where, you know, you can probably replace your full-time job.
Yeah.
But the first steps I would say is having a bit of runway personally. It's
Yeah.
probably the most important thing besides having something that you're kind of wanting to do.
Yeah.
Because till then it's just an idea.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those, I think that's sort of, I agree. And it's one of those things, it's like, it's always hard to think about, but it's like, that runway is a big deal. And I want, like, I feel like sometimes that runway is sort of what probably holds people back. And but it's, for me, it depends on the business, but it's like, in theory, like you said, it starts off as a hobby and like there's a balance of it at first. It's like it's, primary job, hobby, and then at some point ideally they tip the scale. So it's like it's not like you've got to make an all or nothing decision right away, which I think is like there are some people who do that and good for them and like more power to you and it works out, but that's just not how I am. That's why I think it's like I wanted to ask, it's like what do you do to prepare to like start a business? Because I think a lot of people out there have ideas or they want to start a business and it's like they don't know where to start. And I don't know, we talk to people a lot as a part of like our greenhouse initiative that they have new businesses. Typically, a lot of them are under a year. And it's like part of me is like, dang, call us before you ever get started. Like truly, I know that that's a big ask for someone to say, I'm going to go ahead and like invest in a financial service and help before my business ever gets off the ground. But it's like you set yourself up a little bit better. And not that we would, and we haven't, but it's like I feel like there's people who we'd be like, this isn't the right choice for you right now, or it's not the right timing. I mean, to be fair, we have told someone it wasn't the right timing, but sometimes you
I
need to
mean,
hear that.
that's just kind of how things work. Whenever
Hmm.
you're starting to get, uh, I don't know if everyone's the same in this. I don't want to
Yeah.
stereotype anyone, but when you start thinking about starting a business, you're pretty excited usually.
Yeah.
The people that I've known that have started businesses were pretty excited about that thing that they
Yeah.
wanted to do and thought that they could make some money at it. And if your motivation is that you're just miserable at your day job and you want to do something else, there's other ways to do that.
Yeah.
Because like if you're miserable working for somebody else and you don't know how to work for yourself, you're going to end up with a high probability of being miserable there too.
Yeah.
That's why some people say don't make your hobby your full-time job. It's really not about the hobby. It's about all
Yeah.
the little things that go into running a business that most people can't afford to outsource.
Yeah.
And, like, which again is partly why we have the greenhouse, you're just saying, um, to help with that.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, if you're really excited about something, it's hard to see where the pitfalls are.
Oh yeah. Oh,
And
for
having
sure.
somebody that can come in and say, hey, here's where this pitfall is, and don't step there, that's for sure a landmine.
Yeah.
That's worth its weight in gold to anybody, whether they're starting a business from scratch or they've been in business for 20 years, to have somebody that can advise you on or come in and say, hey, here's what happens at this next level. Because there's that old saying that what got you here won't get you there.
Yeah.
No matter what stage of your business you're in, you're kind of always in new territory if you're
Hmm.
pushing towards the frontier, pushing towards the future.
Yeah.
So, if you're somebody that's happy with where you're at and you're just staying put, growth isn't a requirement we just talked about. If you're happy with
Yeah.
that, then you can kind of just repeat the same systems, and as long as you don't have more turnover than you have incoming customers, you'll be fine.
Hmm.
Um, but if you are trying to push and do more and grow your business in different places, eventually you're going to get to a point where the choices may seem overwhelming, or there just might be too many of them to make. You don't know if you should take the road to the left or the road to the right. And having somebody that's been there before that took the road to the left or took the road to the right and
Yeah.
can say, hey, this is what happened here. You might be better off going the other direction is, like I said, is worth its weight in gold.
Yeah.
Whether that's your relationship with your accountant or other business owners that you're just friends with, like,
Yeah.
having people that can kind of walk along the path with you that have been a little further down the road before you is worth every penny.
I agree. And I think that's something that's like not talked about a lot and like, or enough. But if you're starting a business, like you should be friends or talk to other business owners, like especially in your area, like find out like, and people get really hung up on the idea of like, you're all competition. You're not. I mean, even if you're doing the same thing, you're not really competition. It's like there is enough business in most communities to support multiples of the same thing. But it's like and like even like we talk about even in this realm, like being friends with other accountants, it's like we have friends with other accountants and like we pass clients or potential clients to other people who are a better fit. They do the same thing for us. And it's like we would not have that referral system if we didn't make those relationships. And I think those are important in everything that you're doing. Like if you're a crafter and you're going to craft fairs, don't think of every other person in that like your booth next door is not your competition, they're your best friend. Because it's like, I tell you what, if you've got someone else down the road that's like, oh, like you both do quilts. Well, someone down the road, they're not your competition, because the thing is, if they're out of what you're looking for and you're friends with them, I promise you 90% of those people are going to send them to your table. It's like, oh, I don't have this color scheme, but so and so down there, they've got it. Like,
Yeah,
believe it or not, I think most business owners want to support other business owners because it makes everyone stronger.
I agree. In fact,
Yeah.
I've seen it in different industries, like um, I apprenticed with a knife maker and went to a show, and his people behind him and to the left and to the right were people that he'd seen regularly every time he went to one of those shows. They sold
Yeah.
their knives right beside him, and he was super excited every time they sold a knife. They were super excited every time he sold a knife. Um, and then there are people out there that you're not going to be able to be friends with and work with.
Yeah.
That's just a given.
That's
There are
humans.
people
Yeah.
out there who are just trying to be grouchy to everybody and they don't want to make friends in the industry. But the
Yeah.
people who are more successful, I think, are the ones that do make friends in the industry, you know.
Yeah.
Because like the guy that was selling the knives at the table I was helping him work at didn't sell knives that were like the ones to the right or to the left or across the
Yeah.
way or behind him. Everybody's a little different. Same thing with, you know, quilt maker. You might work only in pastel colors while the other person next to you only works in earth tones. Well, if somebody's looking for a pastel colored quilt, that person with the earth tones is going to tell them, talk to my friend here. That's
Yeah.
all they work with, and vice versa. Like
Yeah.
there's so many. Yes, quilts. I'm not even going to say quilts are quilts because knives aren't knives, but like
Yeah.
yes, okay, there are knives
Yeah.
and there are quilts,
Yeah.
but for every quilt maker or every knife maker or every accountant or every home builder, there are people that will appreciate the thing that those individuals create over something that someone else creates
Absolutely.
for whatever reason.
Yeah.
They like the way that thing looked better. They like the way it felt when they touched the quilt or the knife or the you name it, you know.
Yeah.
And so for everybody out there, there's people that will appreciate what you do, and there are people that can point those people to you that are friends in the industry. And there's just no reason to not try to make friends with people that you might think of as competition, but they might be the best referral system you've ever seen.
Yeah. And again, it's like and we have a blog post about this actually, but like running a business can get really lonely. Especially like, I don't know, really probably 9 to 18 months in, the excitement from the public, the excitement from your friends and family has kind of like waned. And if you're not invested, if you're not excited, it's like, I mean, here's the thing, it's still going to feel really lonely because you don't have that constant push of like, oh, new clients every day or oh, new customers in every day. And it's like, then it's real life. And it's like, if you don't have other people who you can sort of lean on and rely on, especially other business owners, it's like, hey, it's been slow. Or yeah, it's been really like you're not necessarily commiserating though. It's that community feel. It's like, oh, they're facing it too. We're in this together versus being incredibly alone. I like,
Yeah. And because if you're having a slow summer and you don't have other data points to pull from, like all of your friends' businesses are slow this summer, you
yeah,
might just think it's you.
hmm
But and knowing that everybody's slow this summer might be exactly what you need to get to the fall, you know?
yeah.
So
It doesn't bring dollars in the door, but it also means that you're not failing or you didn't mess up. It's more like, oh, this is just what's happening right now. And depending on what you do or what your product is or your service is, you're like, especially in year one, you don't know what your downtimes are. And like it may take you 3 to 5 years to really learn that, but like I would venture to guess that 85% of businesses have some kind of seasonality to them.
not all of them. And that's another place where I personally think accounting and CPAs, maybe specifically, although I'm trying not to be stereotypical here, kind of fail and haven't capitalized on some of the opportunities that they have
hmm
because most accountants, especially tax accountants, CPAs that focus primarily on tax returns, they are thinking about how any of that stuff applies to a tax return, and they're
hmm
not necessarily thinking about how the day-to-day stuff happens in a business and
Yeah.
how, you know, as an accountant, so that this also might be, I don't know. I'm not trying to plug us here. I'm just
I mean, it's our
fine.
podcast. Plug us. Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna,
Yeah.
but also if
Yeah.
you're not someone that specifically wants to deal, not in our area, whatever, and
Yeah.
you have accountants near you, which by the way, you probably do.
Yeah.
Find one that does this. It'll make your life easier. They have experience with tons of different businesses in different industries, and they
hmm
can tell you, oh no, like July is probably the worst month for everybody,
Yeah.
or like, oh, I happen to know this other person that's kind of in your industry. Go talk to them about those things. They can be a good resource to, like, you accountants should take advantage of the amount of different businesses that they see to help the people that they help, is what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say. And I think that's been missed by and large in the industry. So that's why we try to do that. Like we try to have, I mean, I'm not dropping names necessarily, you
Yeah.
know, like if we work with people and they don't want us to talk about their business outside, well, we're not talking about people's businesses outside, but I can take
No.
those, the context, I can take the information that I have and say, hey, from my experience, July is bad for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not a good. Everybody goes on vacation. Everybody's thinking about back to school, buying kids clothes or paying for their college tuition for their freshmen this year for the first time or the 15th time, depending on families. There's people that have a lot of kids and they send them to college. It's
Yeah.
expensive. You know,
Yeah.
but like, yeah, July is just a month where people tend to spend money on vacations and not building a new house, or they
Yeah.
spend it on. Now, if you're in the pool industry and
Probably a pretty good
the
month.
whole
Yeah.
the whole family voted
Yeah.
on, buying a pool instead of going to the, Colorado for 3 weeks. That's not everybody, by the way.
Yeah.
Not everybody can do that. So, yeah, if you're in most industries, maybe the only thing that's really beneficial to be in July is back to school supplies.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe moving companies for people sending their freshmen out of state to college,
Yeah.
something like that. But other than that, typically July is probably going to be pretty slow for you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, like again, we don't like not dropping any names, and like some of these aren't even clients. We just talk to them, but I'm like, I would say like the people who we've talked to who do retail, or like retail to coffee shops, July was slow. And it's just like, well, things will pick up. Or, it's like, and again, but if you don't know and you don't have those resources to be like, oh, don't sweat it. It's been tough for everyone. And like, we're not BS when we tell people that. It's like, we're literally telling them, hey, it's been slow for everybody, you know?
Mm. Absolutely. It's not just you,
Mm-mm.
unless it's just you. And, that's also the possibility that you run into a bad time because you made a bad decision and it just coincides with everybody else's slow time. But
True. And here's the thing. And like, I, maybe that's, I mean, I'm sure that does happen. I can't think of I can't think of any people that we've talked to that brought something on themselves, but I
and
mean, it's very possible.
Well, that is a great place to have some sort of strategic advisor for your business, a business consultant, an accountant that knows what they're talking about for several different industries, something like
Yeah.
that.
Be great if you could find someone who offered that kind of coaching. But all right, I got one more of our rapid fire questions for us today.
All right.
All right. I guess is there a difference? And if so, what is the difference between a profitable business and a healthy business?
Profitable is just a number at the end of
Okay.
the year or at the end of the month. Um, you had more money in the bank than you did at the beginning of the month
Hmm.
because you sold stuff and your expenses were lower than the amount of stuff that you sold. That's
Yeah.
profitable. Profitable does not mean healthy. You can have excess revenue at the end of the month and be a complete dumpster fire.
Yeah.
And, you know, the world is burning all around you and you're losing clients still and your employees are quitting and jumping ship and going somewhere else and you can't find people to hire and everybody that you talk to wants three times more than what your region and industry support for the jobs that they're applying for.
Yeah.
you know yeah, you can be profitable and not be healthy. You can have a
Yeah.
ton of problems in your books, like, in your balance sheet, all this, and still be making excess
Yeah.
revenue at the end of the month. Um, but if there's health, I would think, would be like, do you have good cash in the bank?
Hmm.
Is there not a single client that could sink you? Um,
Yeah.
does the business survive if you take 2 weeks off? Or do you come back to the world is on fire? And do you have a system that repeats revenue and
Hmm.
controls expenses? That's health.
Yeah.
You know, if you've got cash in the bank that can handle the downturn, you can take time off and not come back to a burnt down business.
Yeah.
Um, and you've got systems in place that prevent you from overspending,
Yeah.
or at least make it so that that overspending is a choice. And repeatable revenues, like those systems are the way to make a business healthy, in my
Yeah.
opinion. You can't go fly by the seat of your pants, just do whatever you want in a business.
Yeah.
One, there's a bunch of rules that the IRS has put in place and labor laws and things like that that keep you from just kind of doing whatever you want.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, if you have some systems in place that can help with that, and all of those things kind of point back to the other stuff, right? Cash, good balance of clients, take time off, all of that. That's a healthy business. So, like,
I
I
agree.
think that's the difference.
I also think, I mean, I think, and here's the thing, and there are some industries that this is not as true for, but I think it does apply. I think employee retention, like, I think that's a big one. And like when you're considering a healthy business, not just from the financial side, but here's the thing, people may not realize it, and it's something that I don't think people talk about enough, if ever, the cost of onboarding employees, the cost of training someone. Like a lot of those things are not dollar amounts when you look at it on paper, but if you're a smaller company and you can't keep up, like if you're four employees and you can't keep a fifth, one of those four employees is having to retrain a fifth every single time. And that is a huge use of resources, especially in a small company. And I don't think people talk about that enough. And here's the thing, sometimes it's just bad fit. Sometimes it is Sometimes it's bad hiring, but it's again, those are all things that I think are, again, you can be profitable that entire time, but that doesn't mean it's healthy.
Yeah. Or your trainer's running people off from the way that you just posted that. One
I
person
mean,
just
I'd hear that.
churning
I
over
mean,
that fifth person every time.
and that could be the case, but that one wasn't that one wasn't a personal life experience thing. But no, I do think that like that, and one of the weird rules used to be like when you like in larger companies that if all of your employees were either were 7 years plus and 1 year and under, that's like a huge red flag because you had people who were there that won't like are never going to leave because they're taken care of and the rest of them have no opportunity for growth and they leave. That was always one of those rules. It's like, oh, if you don't have a nice like stagger of how people have been there, it's usually not a healthy work environment. Do I think that's true all the time? No, but I do think it's probably a fairly decent rule of thumb that
Starting
if you've
point.
got, yeah, it's at least one of those things like, maybe make a note of this. But I look at, and like I said, some industries are different. You are always going to have a ton of turnover in like, fast food and like the service industry. Like that's going to happen. But
Right.
I do think there's something to be said for, retention and employee happiness as a part of health in the company.
I completely agree. And like job satisfaction,
Hmm. Yeah.
like how knowledgeable a staff person is in the task that they do, whether
Yeah.
or not opportunities are there to upskill and move either horizontally or vertically in the company. There's lots of things that you could look at, and it really depends on each business and what the opportunities there are. You know,
Yeah.
if your whole business is you and your son are experts in heavy equipment, let's say,
Yeah.
you know, then yeah, you're gonna have staff that's got a ton of experience, and then
Yeah.
staff that has less experience than the son has less experience than the dad, right? So
Yeah.
you're not going to take a look at that and go like, are they happy? That an indicator of health? It really
Yeah.
depends on the individual businesses. You're going to be
Yeah.
looking at things, but anything that gives you a starting point to say, what about this question?
Yeah.
Okay, let's answer that question. Is really useful when you're taking some sort of deep dive look at your business and the health of your business.
Yeah.
You know, having a wide pool of questions to start from that can then help with follow-up questions and helping you dig deeper is always a good idea.
Yeah.
And there are people out there that have documented questions that they ask on things like that. I'm not saying everybody does it, but some people do. So,
Yeah.
yeah, some
Not bad,
people are
maybe not a bad
nerds
idea.
about
Yeah.
stuff like that, and that's okay. We're cool people too.
Yeah. All right, that was all for our rapid fire. And we're probably pushing that 40 minutes again, but it's all right. Do you have anything else
Hey,
before we
you just
wrap
stayed
up?
this long.
Uh,
That's great. Dude, I want to ask you a question.
oh yeah.
I'm going to ask you a randomized question that you don't
Okay.
know what the question
All right.
is, so that you can just spitball the answer. The
Perfect.
question is, what have you seen as someone who has helped people with their marketing and branding and sales and stuff?
Hmm.
What have you seen be the biggest, this might be the same question I asked last time, I don't know. The biggest impediment that a business owner has, the most common hang up that a business owner might have when it comes to marketing their business?
Um, I'm going to take slight less. I'm going to take a slightly different approach to this because I like it's not necessarily the biggest hang up in terms of marketing. Because I think a lot of business owners and people in this, like, they're not afraid of marketing. I think the biggest hang up is they are afraid to see marketing through. I think the biggest issue that I see long term is that people don't think long term. People have this idea. They think that it's supposed to take off immediately. It's like, oh, I built this website. Why am I not ranking number one? hey, we just went live 3 days ago. I don't know what did you think we were going to do? It's like, I think it is unrealistic goals and expectations. And to be fair, that is sometimes the fault of the person you're working with, that they set up unrealistic expectations and did not tell you what to expect. I like, in general, when I do any kind of campaign, the shortest amount of time I'm going to do is 90 days. I think that you need at least 3 months to test and see if it's working. You have to give people a chance to see it. You've got to give people a chance to react to it. You've got to give people a chance to respond to it. Now, I'm not saying at the end of that 90 days, it's not going to be like, ooh, we're going to cut our losses on this one. This did not work, because I have had plenty of campaigns that failed miserably and for one reason or another. But I've also had campaigns that took 6 months and became the strongest thing that company's ever done. But it's like, you have to be able to commit and say, I believe in this enough to see it through. And I think that's really important. And here's the thing. I think you run into that same problem. I think the same business owners have the same issue with marketing sometimes as they do with their own businesses. We talked about earlier what to do before you're financially starting your business. It's like, I think a lot of times people think they get really excited and really gung ho, and if there if there is nothing beyond passion and beyond that first idea, like, I think passion's important, but I think you've got to have that plan in place. You have to have strategic passion, not passion alone. And I think that's the biggest thing that people fail in marketing and a lot of things, is like, they won't see things through.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot too that goes into that with people not being able to see the problems in what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, like they think, oh, this is going to work because I want it to work and I'm really passionate about it, but like it's a bad strategy.
Yeah.
Or, you know, you're getting into house flipping 25 years after they had 17 television shows about house flipping, which actually that might be the good time to get back
Yeah.
into it for the
Yeah.
first time. But like, if you're like, I had this great idea, I'm gonna go remodel a house and sell it and then buy a new house, and like, you got that idea from 4 television shows on TLC or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's a saturated market,
Yeah.
right? And so, the idea that idea was great before there was a first television show. The
Yeah.
whole reason that television show started was because some people had some success at it. So yeah, not that it's a bad idea even now if you're going to do it
Yeah.
as something for fun or whatever that can make you a little money. But yeah, what else? Cupcake companies, whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, there's there's so much stuff that's a great idea. It's such a great idea. It's pretty successful, and they pop up all over the place. And so some television producer says,
Yeah.
"Let's make money on that." Um, Not really sure how duck calls got into that, but that's a whole
Yeah.
nother thing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like, just having passion for something doesn't mean it's going to be successful. The
Yeah.
Like I said before, systems create success.
Yeah.
If you can be disciplined in something, you can have freedom in that thing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So like, if you can put some stuff in place that just makes those decisions easier, like, if this happens, I'm going to respond to it like this, then you can kind of take the emotion out of some of that. Doesn't mean don't have fun. Like,
Yeah.
we have fun all the time
Yeah.
as we're systematizing the work that we do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, kind of help systems and structures kind of help those businesses come and continue to be profitable and healthy, and you can be excited about stuff, but that takes time.
It
you know
does.
everybody everybody wants the big win and the Instagram version of success, where it's like all of a sudden there's this kid who's got 1 million followers, but he started with one,
Yep.
and he found a way to get more, and then he continued to adapt what he was doing to the point where more and more people continued to follow that particular creator until they got to 1 million.
Yeah.
Nobody started and then the next day had 1 million.
In
It's the same
general,
thing
there
with
are no
dollars.
overnight successes.
There's not.
Yeah.
There's just
No.
not. And sometimes, what we see as an overnight success, we didn't see the 20 years that they built to that point, whether that's
Yep.
a kid out of college with a master's degree in something, but he's been doing that work since he was 6 years old.
Yeah.
You know, like everybody likes to think of the kid that gets drafted to the NFL, but nobody nobody was paying attention when he was 5 years old, taking snaps on a field in the middle of August in the South,
Yeah.
sweating and you know hurting. His knees were hurting. Nobody like okay, ESPN will look at that kid at some point on game day,
Yeah.
right? They'll do a little thing on him because of where he came from and what he's overcome. Like great,
Yeah.
but by the time they do that, he's a big star in college football,
Yeah. He
right?
didn't come out of nowhere. Like,
He didn't come
truthfully,
out of
no.
nowhere, and it doesn't matter. Like baseball
It's a fun
players,
story, but it's not,
lawyers, you know, Morgan and Morgan or Farah and Farah. You know them. You've seen billboards for them all up and down the interstate system. They're two of the biggest injury law firms in the country. They all started right out of college, busting their
Yep.
butt for somebody else.
Hmm.
And then they were like, let's go do our own thing. And they just happened to catch um, time in American history where it became legal for lawyers to advertise
Yep.
on
And they
television
took
or in,
advantage of it
and they took advantage of that.
and stuck with it.
And and there are things in your as a business owner, there are things that are going to come up in your lifetime and in your business's lifetime that are those same types of opportunities. And if you don't have the foresight to take advantage of them and the discipline to stick those things out, see those things through, you'll end up on the heap of failed businesses, just like the ones that came before you did the same things. We
Yeah.
don't think that we're making the same mistakes because it's something that we've never done before. But the mistakes have happened in all of these failed businesses out there.
Yeah.
90% of all businesses fail within the first year. And then by the end of year five, 90% of all the ones that succeeded the first year are gone. So if you
Yeah.
make it past the first 5 years, the first year, you have a better chance. If you make it past 5 years, you have even more chance of success. But what's that saying about Everest?
Yeah.
It's like Everest is littered with highly motivated and passionate individuals.
Yeah. And here's the thing, I'm really torn because I do think that like we know people and like there's a lot of people who are serial entrepreneurs. And I'm like, and they're passionate about being an entrepreneur. But we also know people who are passionate about like one or two things. And I'm like, I do think that for the longevity of a business and your own personal investment, I do think that passion is important, but it can't be just passion.
Yeah, you got to have systems and strategy and discipline. If you
Yep.
don't have those things, you will burn yourself out and decide it's not worth it.
Yeah. It's hard. I hear that's going to be like it's a really simple thing to say, but if you've never started a business, if you've never run a business, it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so it's not hard for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, depending on who you are, you're not the business owner, but you're the person that runs, most of the operations of the business for the business owner, which you and I have both been,
Yeah,
you
we
know,
have.
it's difficult and can be hard to, you know, make things happen
It
sometimes.
can, and like I think a lot of, and I'm just gonna speak for myself, not you, but I think that sometimes people in those positions, there comes a lot of resentment because at the end of the day, you are doing the work of the owner, or you feel like you're doing the work of the owner with none of the reward of the owner. And and that's not every situation. I've worked like I have been in that position for multiple businesses, and it wasn't always the case, but sometimes it is. I think sometimes, and this is a personal thing for me at least. I tend to find passion in the work that I do, and I find value in it. So I do get really passionate about that, and it's like sometimes I'm like, do I care more about your business than you do? You know, and that's hard, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Well, at least you work for somebody now who cares more about his business than
I
most
do.
people do.
I
So
work for someone now who will sit here and talk with me on a freaking Teams call for an hour about this stuff because he also cares about it.
yeah. And for me, I really hope that people do see this stuff and it benefits their businesses and that they
Me
don't
too.
struggle, quite as much as they like. There's no reason to struggle any more than you have to. I
No.
swear to God. Like if you're just punishing yourself, I guess that's one thing. But
Yeah.
you know, I, I'm not somebody that tries to punish myself. I try to find ways that make things, um, if not slightly easier, at least more replicatable. And
Yeah.
uh,
And here's the thing.
well,
I think like easier may not be the best word for it, truly. But if things are more like if you can replicate things, I think it becomes more like it lessens the stress. Maybe like easy may not be the right word, but it does lessen the stress. And I like,
yeah, anything that lightens the load for sure
yes, exactly.
is, is a benefit to you as the business owner and
Hmm.
probably at least most of your staff.
Yeah. Here's the thing, like not that I necessarily believe in the trickle down effect, but when it comes to stress, 100%. If your boss is stressed, if your boss is in like if things are going poorly, more than likely you feel it in one way or the other.
Oh yeah, and that's the like we've both been there too, where we knew things were not going well
Yeah.
overall, and like you're like, oh man, at some point the axe is coming, right? Like, and it's
Yeah, yeah.
not because you're not working hard, and it's not because you're not successful.
No,
It's just because that business is not thriving, you know.
no. No, and here's the thing, like the more you do it and the more you're in it, the easier it gets to recognize those signs too. And I'm like, not that we want to come in and recognize those signs for your business, but I'm like, you and I are like, we're pretty dang good at sitting down with someone and talking to them. And like, honestly, you and I can leave a meeting after about 20 minutes with someone and we can pretty close to identify their pressure points already. Like, it's not
If
always a
if not
hundred. Yeah.
if not immediately, probably after thinking about it for a few days.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll call each other the next day and be like, hey, this. And it's like, oh, yep.
it is. Hmm.
Yep. But I mean that's something that just comes from experience, and it also comes from us talking to so many people and realizing what that takes to be in business and be successful. So,
Sure.
but all right. Well, unless you have anything else, I feel like we will sort of try and wrap this up for today. This is coming out Thursday, the 27th, right? I don't know what day of the week it is. It will
Mhm.
be the 20, yes, Thursday the 27th. Yeah. So, all right. Again, this is the Planting Seeds podcast for Harvest Advisory Group. I'm Josh.
I'm Nick.
All right. We'll see y'all next week.